Hey everyone, Steve here from Big Head Tech, and we got another case unboxing, overview, opinion, whatever you want to call it. We got the Master Box. It's the MB500, and this is something I purchased for a customer. There are some reasons for it, and I want to try it. B, we're using the Cooler Master cooler, and we need the RGB to work, and this is a little bit of an older build. I think it's a 7th gen build, and it doesn't have RGB. So let's get a case that supports RGB natively, especially Cooler Master, since that's the heatsink that's on it, and call it a day. So we're going to hope that the mesh front, and I suspect it will be perfectly fine compared to the tempered glass front. Well, before we go through that, I don't know if you guys know, but I live in southwestern Pennsylvania, and obviously I support our football team, and they're 0-3, and I'm not particularly happy about that. Just came back from a party or a get together for that, so a little depressing, but hopefully this case will cheer me up. Whoa, I shot myself through the screwdriver. Can't say I've ever done that before. Now let's take a look. So some of the reasons why I bought this case. It should have, yes, with the reset button, I can actually hook up these RGB fans to. It has a power supply shroud. It has 2 intake fans that are RGB, 1 exhaust fan that's RGB. These rear PCI Express cutouts are not breakout, so that's nice. Top dust filter. We should have a bottom basic dust filter, nothing fancy, but that works fine. Let's take a look at a couple things that I do like. So I like the cable routing holes here. So we do have them here respectively. Yep, those are going to be on far too tight, which is fine. There's that. Let's take off the back panel here. So this case can be had for about $80. So you're starting getting to the mid-range cases. I'd say 80 to 100 is real. 70 to 100 is where you find most of your mid-range cases. Perfect. So taking a look around back here. We do have the splitter cable. So what we can do here is, these all plug in VMLX, which is interesting, at least for power, which is fine. But we should have ways of connecting, I believe I said, to the reset button. So that should be interesting. We'll figure that one out. HD audio, USB 3, and actually we have all of our screws and everything here as well. I don't really care for a very specific box. I mean, honestly, I like the fact that these bags have seals on them. So, here is SATA power. And here's actually the Inline Controller, it looks like. Yes, so what you would do is you're going to plug the reset switch into this. So this is power, reset goes into here. And what that allows you to do is you do lose the reset functionality, unfortunately. To be honest, it's not the end of the world for me, at least not for a consumer. I'll just have to explain to them. And then you can press the reset button to cycle through, which is really cool. You could alternatively do this as well, but I like having functionality there, so that's pretty cool. That actually does say in the manual you can do that. And speaking of which, here is the manual. Let's see if it actually talks about it or not. It might. Oh, it's upside down. 9. I guess it ends with that. So, yes, right here. So it tells you you can plug this right into, probably can't see as far away, but the reset. So that's pretty neat. The online documentation said that as well. And then another thing I like, and I have an NZXT case coming in as well. Should be here tomorrow, the next day. So it's going to be interesting. It's not RGB, but we'll find out to see exactly what it is and see how it compares. RGB is nice to have at this price point, but it's not necessarily required. But it's nice. You can take this part out and mount it in. Lastly, I am going to critique the fans a little bit. I don't like Cooler Master's selection here. And I also don't like the fan placement to a degree. I can kind of understand why they did it. Let me see here. Yeah, see, if you put it up any higher, I think it won't have the effectiveness, to be honest. But what I don't like is these are not the right fans. These are airflow fans, and these should be either balanced or air pressure fans. Airflow fan in the rear is fine, but I don't think airflow fan in the front's ideal. I mean, this mesh isn't bad, and there's a lot of room to it, so maybe it's not obstructed, but I've always felt air on the side of pressure versus airflow. You can almost never go wrong with pressure fans, but you can definitely go wrong with airflow fans. But again, I'm not a design engineer. With how much space is between here and there, it looks to be a fair bit. Yeah, there is definitely a fair bit. Maybe that is. I would have liked. See, the problem is it ends here and the fan already goes up to here, so putting it up higher wouldn't make a lot of sense. I'm fine with the placement. Let me throw the build-in in here real quick. The only thing we're missing is a power supply, but I'll come up with one. Yeah, I'll just put the 500 in or whatever. And I'm gonna give you guys my build opinions on it. So, too long didn't read. It's a good case, 80 bucks, buy it. Here's the reason. With that being said, it's $80. It's not perfect, and it's impossible to find a perfect case. Like I use a Lee & Lee PCO 11 Dynamics. There's some stuff I don't like about it. The way the side panel sits, it's very easy to bend. I've already had to replace that once, and it was 50 bucks. It's a good case, but it's also expensive. But with this, just a couple of things to note. This does fit the MA620P dual tower. It's a very tall cord. I think it's like 165 millimeters. So just keep that in mind, that this will support the Hyper 212 and most of the larger air coolers. But I want to go down the path of what I don't like, because I'm always going to pick something apart. What I don't like is, since it is a smaller mid tower, getting the 8-pin was very difficult. There's two ways to fix that. A, go with the single tower air cooler like a Hyper 212 RGB, or B, install the power supply first, then the motherboard, plugging the 8-pin in first, then mount the board. It's another option. Mounting the screws was a little bit tricky with the dual air cooler. I have a really long screwdriver, and that helped, but if I didn't have this, it would have been difficult. Another thing, no fan hub. It uses Molex power. Now, under load, I was about 36, 37 dBA average over I think I was recording for 15, 20 seconds. And that's fine for me. And I don't even know what was making that sound. It could have been the Zotac 660, it could have been this, it could have been the fans. But for me, well acceptable. But I would have liked a fan hub. Also, you get a connector that takes these two and this rear fan together, which you can plug into the reset, which does work perfectly fine. Or you can plug it into a 4-pin on the front, or a 4-pin 12-volt on the board, rather. What I would have liked is either another one of those, which I happen to have and I used, or maybe a 5-to-1 if that's possible. So having a fan hub, I think, would have been nice, connected to one of the boards here, or one of the ports on the board. I think I actually have enough ports to be 100% honest, but it's fine. Running Molex, the fans aren't that loud, but some people might want to turn them down. So that's kind of most of my gripes. It being a little bit smaller definitely makes it a little more difficult to build in. I would say the perfect build for this is to go with a Hyper 212 RGB, so single air cooler. AIO may not be ideal for a couple reasons. A, would not want to use these fans. These are airflow fans. I don't know what kind of performance the AIO would get. That being said, with the i7-6700 and a GTX 1660 running full load, I was at 42 degrees over ambient on the GPU, 30 degrees on the CPU. So I don't think airflow is an issue. I even think if you have an AIO and use the fans that come with it, it should be fine. The only problem is if you mount them higher, that might make it a little bit difficult. That being said, the way you can mount is put the AIO on the inside, fans on the outside, and go through the front. It'd be a lot easier to mount that way. So definitely possible. A 360 would fit in here as well. But I think this is mid-range, upper mid-range computer case. I think they can up the price by $10 and add in some of the creature comforts I want, such as a fan hub, more expandability on the RGB connection. And then for an AIO in the top, which I don't recommend doing, on this board there's enough clearance, but if you have tall heat sinks on the top, it might interfere, but these are relatively lower, so you could fit a 240 up here as well. But I'm going to probably do a video in the future explaining front versus top, especially when you're starting to run a mid the higher end graphics card. What I've learned is if you intake hotter air, the graphics card might run a few degrees warmer, but if you're exhausting for the coldest CPU, you're going to go upwards of almost a 10-degree delta, I think I've seen. But I want to get actual results for that. So overall, I can recommend it. I think Cooler Master did a very good job on this case compared to their other Master Box series with limited airflow. I think the mesh and the amount of space that's in front of it, even though these are not pressurized fans, which again I prefer a pressurized fan over airflow fan, it does perfectly fine. It's able to draw the air you need into the system. And I think that you can put like an R5 or an R7 with, you know, an RX 5700 and honestly this should be fine. So link in the description below for everything here. You can purchase on Amazon. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you dislike, hit the dislike button. Leave a comment, get subscribed, donate on Patreon. Maybe I didn't even set that up right. As always, this is Steve from Big Head Tech, and I'll see y'all later on down the road.